Whenever I go to New York City, one of the first things I do is get a New York Style Bagel. They're the best! But since I don't live in New York, how do you do them at home? Well, I'm going to show you how to make some New York Style Bagels coming up right now on Cooking with Chef Bryan. Welcome everybody to Cooking with Chef Bryan. I'm so excited to show you how to make New York style bagels. They are a favorite of mine, and yes, I think it's got to have something to do with the water, the way that they get them out there, but I'm going to show you some pretty darn close ones here that you can make right at home. But first of all, what I want you to get used to using is a kitchen scale. Kitchen scales are great when it comes to baking because you can measure out the ingredients and they're the same every single time that you make them. If you measure them out using, say for example, a measuring cup like this, everybody is going to measure flour differently. From one scoop of flour that looks like a cup to me may be different from one scoop of flour that looks like a cup to you. So by weighing out the ingredients, you're ensured to have those perfect amount of ingredients every single time for the consistency that you want. But first of all, the word of the day is fermentation. This is the most important word you will ever learn when it comes to making New York style bagels because we've got to get the dough fermenting. And to start it off, we're going to make a sponge or poulish, depending on however you want to look at it. To do that, all we're going to do here is we're going to create basically a sourdough start. That's what it's going to be. We're going to have 275 grams, and I am working in grams. The recipe on my website is going to be both in grams and cups so that you can get a good idea of how they are. So don't panic about that. If you don't understand the metric system or you don't have a kitchen scale, I'll also have the measurements in on the recipe on cookingwithchefbryan.com. So we're going to put in there the flour that's going to go in there as well as the water, and I am going to actually weigh the water. That's kind of the fun thing. I do have the measurement on the website so you can get that, but just tear out the scale. This is how easy they are. I've weighed in the flour. Now I've zeroed out the scale again, so it's a 0. So I can now measure in and weigh the ingredients. Once again, this time it's water. I'm going to weigh the water to make sure I have sufficient amount of water, which is right to there. So now that I have that into there, all I'm going to do now is add a little bit of yeast, and that's all this is going to be. It's called a sponge. It's also a way you can start a sourdough start if you wanted to. It's just an easy way to add some delicious flavor into the dough itself. So now that I have all of that done, I want to mix this up. You can use your fingers if you want to mix that up. I'm just going to use a spoon for the convenience of TV, but you can do however you would want to. Now you're just going to mix that all together just until it comes together. Now what I like to do is you can just cover this with some plastic wrap, leave it out on the warm counter overnight and let it actually ferment a little bit. And that's all there is to creating a poulish. So very simple, but this is where the flavor comes from, are all the fermentation and all of the flavors that are created with the fermentation. So now the poulish is done. But through the magic of TV, this is why I love TV, you can always like fast forward and I actually have things done. I do have a poulish that's already here. It's in my oven here. I have a steam oven and it has a proofer on it. And so I have had this in here proofing for several hours so that it's nice and spongy and beautiful. So the poulish is ready, and as you can see, it's nice and airy. It has bubbles on top of it. What I like to do now with the poulish is, once again with that kitchen scale, I can put that right on top of there, and I can just zero that out, and I can continue to build the remaining recipe and then just dump it simply into my mixing bowl. If I wanted to, I could just put the mixing bowl right on top of that kitchen scale and zero it out and just weigh ingredients into it. So I hope you're beginning to see how easy it can be with a kitchen scale in mixing up bread doughs or baking in general. So first of all, now to this, we want to add a little bit of water. Once again, I'm going to weigh the water out. And this is important to make this recipe with the poulish because the liquid that is in the poulish itself is all part of the recipe, and it's going to give lots of flavor to these New York style bagels. Can't wait for you guys to make this here. Also to this, I am going to add, once again, a little more yeast to it. to get it going. So essentially what I've done is I've basically divided the yeast that goes into the overall recipe. Some of it goes into the poolish when you make it, first of all, then the rest of it is going to go into it when we make our bagel dough, just like I'm doing here. Now to this, we're going to add in the flour. So I'll just zero out the scale one more time so that it goes to 0, and I can continue measuring in the flour. And the nice thing about this is, can you see, I don't have to actually make sure I'm measuring out cup per cup. I can just dump things into there until I hit the desired weight of the flour that I need in there. So it's really very easy using a kitchen scale. So we're just about there to the weight that I need for this particular recipe, and there we go into there. Also to this, I'm going to use an ingredient that you may not have in your home. Now this is a special ingredient that is a must in any New York style bagel, and I think it's what actually makes New York style ingredients. And what is this particular ingredient in? Oh, you're going to have to come back when we come back in just a minute, and I'll tell you exactly what it is. But it's something you can readily get here in the valley, and it should be fairly easy to find. Now also I'm going to add some salt into there, and when we come back here in just a minute, I'll tell you what that ingredient is.
As summer comes into full swing, it's time to fire up the grill and treat your family to a special outdoor meal featuring everyone's favorite Klondike brand potatoes. Enjoy preparing one of our many chef-inspired recipes from the web, or create your own backyard culinary masterpiece using varieties from the full line of Klondike potatoes. Visit KlondikeBrands.com today for hundreds of recipe ideas and make your summers sizzle with Klondike Brands.
Welcome back everybody to Cooking with Chef Bryan. We left just a minute ago talking about this one ingredient. Now this is so important when it comes to bagels, and you can pick it up generally at a brewer shop that sells brewing products here, or you can order it online, but it is diastatic malt. And so you just want to buy some diastatic malt powder. This one I got online into here, and it actually is very important when it comes to making bagels. And so let's go ahead and get that added into there. And once again, you can zero out that scale and get that so that you can weigh that in so it's exactly what you need it to be. And so that's why I love kitchen scales. They're very easy to use, and everything is going to be perfect as far as the ingredient wise going into it. And so everything by weight rather than by volume or measurements, because the cup of flour that I measure may be different from the cup of flour that you measure. And so that's where all of the discrepancies come into it when it comes to measuring by using a weight. You do away with all of that because the weight is the weight. That's all it is to it. So now that we have everything into there, I am going to just add this into the bowl of my mixer here. Just going to use my fingers there to scrape everything into there so that it is sure to get into there. There we go. All right, so now once these are into here, let's go ahead. We're going to just mix that up, let that just come mix together. It's going to take about 5 to 7 minutes. I'll let that mix here when we're on break because it's kind of loud. But what I want to talk about now are the old school bagel boards. Now these are really easy, everybody, to make. I actually made these. It was kind of fun. So what they consist of, I just have a piece of wood here. And you can use 2x4s, 1x4s, whatever you want to. This is what the piece of board that I'm using look like. And then this is a burlap. And I did order that off of offline because I didn't know, or online, offline, online, whatever it is. It came to me in the mail. How's that? And you can find them generally. Upholstery shops will have it, but I would recommend just going online, ordering up some burlap, just like this. And it comes in a roll. You can actually find it. It'll say bagel burlap, but you can do a little search and find it. And this is the roll right here. And it's simple to do. All I did, let me move this scale back here out of the way. All I did was I would just take it, the board itself, and I would just put it so that there's about 3-4 inches underneath the wood itself. I'd drape it over there so that I'd have about 3 or 4 more inches to go underneath the board. And then I just honestly, I used a stapler and I just stapled the burlap to the other side of the board so that it would stick on there. Now these don't go through the dishwasher, obviously. I just wash them by hand if they need to. So just stretch that so it's nice and tight. Wrap that underneath the board, and then you can use some little nails if you want to nail that down, some staples on there if you want to staple that down, but you just want to secure it on one side. You don't need both sides to be ready to go into the oven, because all we're going to use is this one side when we make our bagels, because we're doing traditional New York style bagels here, New York City bagels, the New York style way. However you want to look at it, they are delicious however you want to eat them. I love them with lox, a little bit of cream cheese, maybe some pickled onions on them. They're just delicious. The reason that the boards are used is so that when you have the toppings on the bagel, you turn them upside down. These are going to go in some water, so they don't catch on fire in the oven or dry out. And then what happens is you bake them first off for several minutes on the board. That's going to dry out the bagels, and then after that time you'll flip them over. But I'll show you that in just a minute here. Okay, now I do have some dough that's all ready to go here, and you can see this one here mixed. When you get it mixed up, you're going to take it to a bowl that has been sprayed with some vegetable spray. Let it double in size. And this one you can see has doubled beautifully in its size. And so that's very important. Once again, that fermentation thing I was talking about, that's where all the flavor of bread comes from. And so if you want more flavorful bread, let it ferment longer. You could actually put it in the refrigerator if you wanted to let it have a slow rise overnight or for several hours so that it develops that much more flavor. That's why sourdough breads are so delicious. They have so much flavor, is all that fermentation. All those aromatic rings, chemistry, physics, all that kind of stuff. Who'd have thought bread was such a fantastic thing? And so let's put the flour over here aside. We can start working with this particular dough here, because I've seen many ways to shape bagels, but there's really only one way the New Yorkers do it. And I remember sitting watching a New York bagelry make those bagels. They could just pop those bagels out, shaping them. I had this massive dough that was the size of this table, and they were shaping them with their hands. I'll show you how to do that when I come back.
It's no secret, frozen rolls are fresher than bakery rolls. You see, bakery rolls are made in commercial bakeries. Then they sit all day in stores. Some even contain preservatives, because rolls begin to stale immediately. By the time you eat your roll, it could already be days old. Rhodes Bake and Serve is found in your grocer's freezer. Simply take Rhodes frozen roll dough home and let it thaw and rise in a pan. Bake Rhodes rolls in your own oven. Rhodes Bake and Serve, hot and fresh, right out of your oven.
Welcome back, everybody. We're working on some New York style bagels here. Delicious. This is the dough that we've been working with. It has risen already now. It's more than doubled in half, or in size. And now what I'm going to do is cut it in half, and I'll set half of it aside, and we're going to work with this one half. Now the nice thing about bagels itself is, not everyone has to be perfect. We get so involved in thinking, well, if it's not exactly perfect, then they're not right. No, that's the fun about bagels, is every single one is going to be different. Single one may have a different size hole in it. It may be smaller, it may be bigger. It's just up to you with the bagels. And so what I'm doing is just rolling these out into about an inch thick or so bagels. And this was so fun when I was watching in New York. They had a table, honestly, of dough that was as big as this counter here. And the guy was just there doing this exact, cutting some off, rolling it out, and then they take it, they wrap it around the knuckles of the hand, very loosely, pull it down, and then just pull it so that you have the rope of the bagel just right into there. Then using the heel of your hand or the ball of your hand, you're going to just roll that so it seals, and voila. There's your bagel. And so very simple. I just have a parchment paper here that I've sprinkled a little flour, because these will need to double again in size. So it's very simple to do that. And you don't want the rope of dough to be too thin. So I'd say maybe 2 inches in diameter or so, about that thick out there. And then you're going to wrap that around loosely around your knuckles. And then you're just going to press down with the ball of your hand there to hold that together. And voila! There is our other bagel. And so This is just really fun. And once you get all of these bagels made like this, you're going to go through this dough just like this, making the bagels. Then you're going to boil them. When you boil them, I always like to add a little bit, a large spoonful of just a barley malt syrup. You can get this at the grocery store. It's very readily available. It's very delicious, and it's going to give that final flavor to the bagel itself. So you'll add that into the water, let it come to a boil. Once these have doubled in size, you're going to very carefully put them into the water, and you're going to let them boil for about 30 seconds on each side. You're going to take them out at that point, and what you're going to do is brush each one of them with some egg wash. And then you're going to sprinkle them with your favorite toppings. I'm going to use an everything bagel topping, so very, very simple. The topping side goes down first, or face down, I should say, on the little boards that I showed you earlier on how to make those, the little bagel boards. And then that is going to go into a preheated 475-degree oven for about, on the board itself, for about probably 5 minutes. Then what you're going to do is actually rotate the board so the bagels come off of it, and they finish baking for about 15 minutes on that hot pizza stone. What I do is I just heat up the pizza stone right with the oven itself, and I let that heat up for a good 30 minutes. It's very important to heat that oven up for a long period of time so that every bit of the oven is actually heated. A lot of times we have problems with the ovens not being at the correct temperatures because we don't let them preheat long enough. So let them preheat a little longer so that all of the metal will actually preheat up to the temperature. I'm just stretching those out just a little bit. As I'm rolling out the dough here, it becomes very tough and wants to fight me with that. So I'm going to keep working on these here. Let's just kind of do this out here, give them a little space so that they can double in size, and then they're going to go into a boiling hot pot of water with a little bit of barley syrup in there. Now, one thing I wanted to point out is the work surface that I'm working on here has no oil, it has no flour on it purposefully. There's a little bit that's coming off from the dough, but it's got to be a clean surface so that I can work and roll out the bagels themselves. So once again, roll it around just like that, around the knuckles. Not tight, you want it to be fairly loose. And if you need to, when you get them shaped, if they're pulling back together, just simply after the dough's relaxed a little bit, pick them up, stretch them out so that the inside, the donut or the bagel hole is a little bit larger. Everyone is going to be unique. These are handmade bagels. And that's what's so fun, I think, about New York style bagels. I'm going to keep working on these, get these shaped. We'll get them in the oven, get them boiled. When we come back, we're going to enjoy some New York style bagels.
As summer comes into full swing, it's time to fire up the grill and treat your family to a special outdoor meal featuring everyone's favorite Klondike brand potatoes. Enjoy preparing one of our many chef-inspired recipes from the web, or create your own backyard culinary masterpiece using varieties from the full line of Klondike potatoes. Visit KlondikeBrands.com today for hundreds of recipe ideas and make your summers sizzle with Klondike Brands.
Well, we've come to an end of the exciting adventure of the New York style bagel. These are everything bagels, all of them. And I actually bought the everything bagel spice blend just at Smith's. And so I saw it on the shelf and I thought, ooh, those are my favorite kind of bagels. That's the kind that I'm gonna make. So these are done. Some of them are hotter than others. This one has cooled off nicely. So let's listen. Oh yeah, nice and crunchy, a nice crumb on there. There we go, nice and doughy. Look at that beautiful crumb in the center. We've got the air pockets. It looks perfect. I don't want to waste any of those, so I'll just brush them on then. And I can't wait for you all to try these at home. And of course, you can go grab the recipe right on cookingwithchefbryan.com. It's over there to grab it. You can serve these bagels with lox. You can serve them with pickled onions and lox, some capers on there. You can just make a sandwich out of them. Maybe that's what I'll do for dinner tonight, is just make some delicious fresh bagel sandwiches. Who knows? The sky's the limit with New York bagels here. As far as the toppings, you can use any kind of topping you want. I just like everything bagels because it has everything on it. You know, from the garlic to the onion powder to salt, nice flake salt. You've got to have that on there. Sesame seeds to poppy seeds. So if you have all of those individual ingredients in your pantry, you can make your own toppings to go on top of your bagels. Whether you like them light or dark, you can adjust the cooking times in the ovens to get the right color of the bagel that you want. And like I said, everyone is going to be unique and different because they're all handmade. Well, I wish you were all here to smell this. I can smell the aromas of the garlic and the onion and everything, the baked bread. It's delicious. I'm going to dig into a nice New York style bagel. They were so fun to make with all of you. What a great adventure. And of course, you can grab the recipe on cookingwithchefbryan.com. You can also find me on any social media platform. The one that I do pay attention the most is the Instagram one, and that is Chef Bryan Woolley. So you can DM me on there if you have any questions about the bagels. Well, you guys enjoy, and I'll see you all next time. You can find all of these complete recipes on my website, cookingwithchefbryan.com.